Hello, hello. I am Karen Jean-François, and this is the Women in Data podcast. A podcast where every other week I interview some of the most inspiring women working in data. They discuss how data is used in various industries, share their knowledge and experience in the field, and equip you with tips to help you overcome challenges on your career and feel great. Let's get straight to it. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Women in Data podcast. I feel like this year I've had a few technical issues with the podcast, I want to say. So this morning, logged in to record the episode, and I'm realizing I got kicked out of my recording plan. So we are back on Zoom like we used to do in the early days of the podcast, but that's fine. We can do that. Today, I am privileged to be sitting down with Roshni Daswani, whose journey from the Canary Islands to becoming the head of data strategy and transformation at a top-tier consulting firm in the UK offers a wealth of wisdom and inspiration. Having had to navigate language barriers, cultural shifts, and the male-dominated landscape of data and consulting, Roshni's path is a masterclass in resilience, confidence building, and effective leadership. Whether you are a seasoned professional or just starting out, really, this conversation is packed with actionable insights to help you on your career, build confidence, and command any room. Hi, Roshni.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Karen.
Hey, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast. And I can't wait. You have an incredible story. I can't wait for you to be able to share it, but also to share all the advice and the things that you've learned along the way. But before we get into that, can I invite you to introduce yourself?
Yes, of course. So, hi, everyone. Hi, especially women of data. I am Roshni Daswani. And, what can I tell you about me? I came to the UK 13 years ago. And pretty much since the day I landed, all my roles in the industry as well as in the consultancy side of the fence have been in heavily linked to data roles, where, as you said, I've gained lots of experience, lots of stories to tell, and more importantly, lots of lessons that I've learned.
Yeah, incredible. And I hadn't realized it had been 13 years you've been in the UK. When you arrived, did you know you were going to stay that long?
No, it's actually interesting you ask me that because I came here on the 25th of January,
Okay.
uh, 2011, and doing what I do, numbers, being very accurate, being binary, black and white, one and zero. So numbers do stick with me. And I will never forget, I landed in an evening one day. It was rainy, it was quite miserable. And I was thinking, oh my God, I do personally come from a wonderful place. I am originally from the Canary Islands. So we do have good weather all year round. So you can imagine, when I landed, I was like, what am I doing here? And I always kept telling myself, it's going to be a year, it's going to be 2 years. And before I knew it, 13 years, I'm still here.
I can relate to that feeling. I've been here 10 years and same, I was thinking I will be here a year, 2 years max and then go back. But yeah, here we are over 10 years later. It's funny that you arrived on the 25th of January. That's my birthday. And the Canary Islands are definitely my favorite place to escape winter.
Great place.
So you did say you arrived from the Canary Islands, so that will be Spain. What are
Mhm.
the challenges except for the weather that you encountered when you arrived?
Well, I guess my main point, and I have to say this, is when I came here, I was 30 years old, and I didn't speak the language. Obviously, everyone roughly knows, the odd word in English here and there. You can just about get by. But, my English was not anywhere near perfect. I came here thinking, you know what? I've had great jobs back in Spain. The Canary Islands being such a small place, I had, the best jobs you can think of that
Mm.
you will get in the Canary Islands. I'd had those, so or at least some of them. And when I came here, is the realization that anywhere any bit better than anyone else. If, in fact, you're worse than everyone else because you cannot even speak the language. And I will never forget. And this is a very silly story, but that was definitely, when I woke up to reality. As I mentioned, I landed an evening, and then the next day I woke up and I went to supermarket. I was staying at a friend's, and I went to supermarket to buy milk. And I left the supermarket without buying milk because I wasn't able to find it, because
Oh
here in the UK,
no.
milk is in the fridge, and in Spain it's not in the fridge. So it never occurred to me to look at the fridge. And I didn't speak good enough English to even ask someone where's the milk. And it was like, whoa, damn, Roshni, you're 30 years old and you can't buy milk.
Oh my God. This is giving me so many emotions right now. I'm having goosebumps. I can feel how difficult this must have been for you. Oof. Not being able to speak English, and you're talking about, the realization that maybe you're not to the level where you thought you were at. And I'm guessing this brings a lot of different feelings and also problems with confidence and all these kind of things. But not speaking English and looking for a job in an English speaking country, this must have been really difficult. How did you handle that?
Well, I definitely lived in a constant headache, I will say, because my head it was continuously processing, getting information, translating in my head, then translating it back again before I can, speak. But I have to say, to start, diving into my data journey, I guess I was lucky enough to be at the right place, talk to the right person at the right time. There was, I think it was 3 to 4 months after I came to the UK, after going through some very difficult months where, I could not find a job, and also I was coming from a financial services background. I really didn't want to go into another industry. I wanted to try very hard before jumping into doing any other job, that then it was going to be more difficult for me to come out of it. So in that sense, I really struggled to find a job within financial services for the first couple of months. But I was lucky enough that there was a rating agency that needed people from different European countries to come and help them assess some of the contracts for RMBS transactions. And obviously, one of the countries involved as part of that program was Spain. So they were asking me for the one skill set that I could easily bring to the table, which was Spanish.
Hmm.
And they almost paid me to use my one skill. No, obviously, I'm being a bit too harsh by saying that was my only skill, but definitely using Spanish as my starting point to then be able to read documentation, translate them into English, build reports, and then get familiar with the financial service industry within the UK. So talk about a perfect job. I think definitely that was it. And I was there for 6 months. Straight after, there was an opening for a senior data analyst within the RMBS team. By then, my confidence level had increased. I knew what I was doing. I trusted myself more. And I was already starting to learn the rules of the game, if you like, how things work, how do you navigate through the challenges, the political challenges, the bureaucracy in some of the companies, within this sector, trying to understand who is who, and as I said, how to navigate to that network, but still not lose yourself. So it was great. And then that's how I got my first proper job in data.
Yeah, and I'm guessing, the fact that you arrived already with some experience in banking, although in Spain rather than in the UK, means that once you are able to speak English and also understand the rules of the game, as you said, it was probably easier for you to progress from that point of view.
Absolutely. Obviously, I've listened to many of your podcasts. not all, but I'm sure what I'm just about to tell you, you have heard it many times, right? But working in this sector, and I'm referring more specifically to data and technology, it is very male dominated. So it became very clear very quickly to me from the start that, that as a woman in this industry, there were challenges. And I would be lying if I don't say that I'm going to use the word suffered, but maybe I don't need to be that dramatic, but definitely I felt it in my skin in many circumstances, in many situations where, it's very male dominated. We're not many women, and that impacts your confidence level.
Yeah.
That impacts, the way you do things in those environments.
Yeah, I totally agree. I know I've had the moment where I was the only woman in my team, and in the first few months, the way I shrunk before I was able to go back and think, hold on, Karen, you're here because you can do it. It had taken some time and a few conversations as well. But you mentioned confidence a few times. So you mentioned the way that how your confidence would hurt when you arrived. You mentioned how you were actually able to build it back again to go for the senior data analyst role. Can you tell us a bit how that works? How do you build confidence to work in data as a, not necessarily in data, but I guess in an environment where it's male dominated, you're also a woman of color. How do you actually build that confidence to become the leader you are?
So first I take a lot of headspace to talk to myself, if that's the way to put it, where I remind myself of my worth and my value. And I try to remind me that the devils on my shoulder that will tell me that other people in the room are better than me, that you say but you don't. I don't listen to it, and I just trust the fact that I've got to where I am today because of my hard work. And don't take me wrong, hard work sometimes is not enough. How many
Yeah.
people do work hard and still don't achieve don't get what they need to or they will want to. So I guess it's a combination of definitely many factors. Hard work is definitely one of them. Just to give you an example, in my current job, obviously in the last 13 years, there has been a progressive journey in my professional career, to the point that at this point in time, as of 2 months ago, I became an associate director for a consultancy company. And in fact, just to bring my title, I'm the head of data strategy and transformation. So it's a mouthful, but it's also a reflection of the hard work and the journey. But even up to today, right, when I go to a pitch for a client, or when I'm talking in front of, I'm going to call them big stakeholders,
Mm.
people that have been in the industry for many more years than I have, people that sometimes they know more than I do, and sometimes they think they know more than I do, you know. And when speaking in front of them, it takes a lot of preparation. I will still sit in front of the mirror and rehearse, make sure I'm being, concise, make sure I'm training myself in answering the questions that people are asking me, as opposed to answering the question I thought they will ask me.
Yeah.
And people nowadays, especially in the world we live in, people do value that you hear what they're saying and then you address those points. And I think that's definitely heading towards the how do you become a leader? Is by making sure you listen your audience. And I'm not talking now only about clients. I'm also talking about, people within my team, junior people, more senior people than me. It's about the dialogue and what do you do with that information.
I love that. There are a couple of things here that you mentioned. So first, the devil. My French accent is going to say that very wrong. The devil on your shoulder, that's telling you maybe you're not good enough or you don't know these kind of things. This is something I believe we can all relate to. As Quigley Colliers have really great podcast episodes on that topic, and they call them the gremlins. And they also have, I think, they released a few couple of books on that, on knowing them, understanding them, and how to overcome them. I don't know. It was a limited series, so if anyone is interested and can't find these books, let me know if you're in London. I'm happy to share mine. I found them to be very practical and helpful. And the next part is something that you were talking about, listening and being able to listen and understand what people are saying so that you can respond to that. But you also talked about practicing answers to questions people are going to ask you. And I'm really interested in hearing a bit more about that, because this is something I've tried to do in the past. So, when you have, for example, a presentation. So you work in consulting, so you have to answer questions on the spot, which I find to be very scary. But even when you work in data, so let's say you're a data scientist or a manager or something like that inside the company, so you work internally, you also have to go to meetings, you also have to do presentations. And I find it very hard to find the space to practice. So is that something that you force yourself to do as a reminder, or?
Well, it's not a reminder. It's almost like if there was a checklist, are you ready checklist? Rehearsing and preparing for that is definitely one of the boxes I will be looking to take for me to say, I am ready.
Okay.
Obviously, the more you do things, and especially when the more you do something of the same, less preparation you need because, it starts to be embedded within your narrative, the way you talk. It becomes more natural as well, and especially I've been in different consultancy firms, and each consultancy firm has the way of working. They do have their own frameworks. So when you join, you almost make their story yours.
Yeah.
And sometimes, your clients will tell you, oh, can you talk to me about a specific case study when you have done this before? Sometimes you're talking about you personally, and sometimes you're talking about something that your company did before you join, for example. So this is not about lying to the client. We don't lie. I'm not going to say I did it, but I still need to be able to tell the story in a compelling manner, almost making it mine. So because I'm representing my organization when I'm speaking to a client, and how you build that confidence level to then you can actually showcase that
Mm.
confidence is key, right? And all this goes back to what I mentioned a few minutes ago, which is the rules of the game. Once you understand that this is what it's all about, people as a leader want to listen to you and believe that you're being honest, you're being truthful. And when you tell your client, we can do this for you, we will deliver this for you, your voice carries weight.
Yeah, that's incredible. I have to say, yeah. So for me, knowing that someone is being truthful to me will definitely mean that I will trust them more, and I'm going to be more willing to want to work with them, rather than having someone who would be, I guess, embellishing the truth in a very visible way. So you talked about the games of the rules a few times. So I guess one of them is being listened, one of them is being honest and truthful. You talked also around, being able to navigate the challenges and all these things. What else is there?
Is also, how you try to resolve those challenges. Is each situation will require different resolution, just to bring it to life a bit more, right? There has been some instances when I'm in a meeting with a client and I walk in with my team, and happens to be that my entire team are males and I'm the only woman. Actually, I'm going to go a bit further. I'm the only woman of a ethnic minority, and I'm going to say that people may disagree, but I think I do look slightly younger than my age. So sometimes I can already tell when I'm walking into a room that there's almost a preconception or an assumption that I am more junior than the other men within my team, that I am the least experienced, and even the body language, how people sit and faced everyone else. I can sometimes have felt that their body language is already telling me they have assumed I'm the one that is going to be talking the least, for example.
Mm.
Thing. Even sometimes the way people will talk to me versus talk to my colleagues is slightly different in tone, almost like making me feel that, people need to tone it down with me. Why? And to overcome some of those challenges, something that I've done in the past, and I admit it, is when I'm introducing myself, one of my first sentences is bring to the table how many years of experience I have. And I don't do it because I need to do it, which I think we should all kind of tend to do. But I do it for a very strong reason, is to say, hey, wait, I've got more than 20 years of experience, right? Something that I've also done is when working with my team members, I've made sure my team members help me, or not help me, but when they talk, they make sure they position me as well. So it's not only me positioning myself, but it's also my team members helping the client or the rest of the audience to understand the role I play. And it shouldn't be like this, right? But I can't change everything. So at least I can try to think how I can soften or mitigate some of the situations.
Yeah, I guess as humans, we will always have bias, biases, and it's very unfortunate, being a very kind word. I want to say that we find ourselves in these kind of situations. So I know I I look younger as well. So because I'm not in consulting, I don't have these kind of problems. But I also see people sometimes assuming that I'm not the manager or something like that. But I really like what you said. So for you to be able to, I guess, gain this kind of credibility early on. So it's about from the start seeing who you are, how long you've been working in there, and to be able to let others know that you have the experience, and also relying on your team to help pass this, I guess, this narrative that you're the one who is in charge. It's very important that I find to be able to talk about that with your team and have their support from that perspective, because otherwise, if they're behaving like the other person, then that would put you in a very strange situation, I guess.
Yeah, and I would be lying again if I tell you that that doesn't have has not happened to me. Of course, has happened to me. Sometimes there are challenges within your own teams, and you need to resolve those. And I will say, unfortunately, I found those challenges in internal challenges more times than I would have liked to. But as a woman, as a professional, as a leader, I definitely sometimes I deal with it better, sometimes I don't. And the answer is always goes back to, being clear and upfront. If something doesn't sit well with you, if you think you're being treated differently because you're a woman, because you're a woman of minority, ethnic minority, or simply, because you're different in any way, it is about speaking up.
I agree. I also find it very difficult to be able to point out that I'm very self-critical, let's say. So I'm very self-aware, very self-critical. So I'm always going to think first, maybe I did something wrong. And that's the gremlins we were talking about before, I guess. But I find it very hard to say, they're treating me this way because I'm a woman, because I'm Black. Is that something that you've faced as well? Or
Unfortunately, again, yes, the gremlins will tell you that sometimes,
okay.
and I think it is down to us to actually, and it's difficult, right? Because sometimes it's not black and white, it's not a clear line where it is or is not, and sometimes it's us, assuming is that. So it's not easy. It's not easy. I'm going to say, luckily, I've had the luxury of choosing organizations, especially in the second half of my career, where I've been able to be more selective, and look at the culture of the company that I want to join. At least this is my first line of defense, at least there are less chances for those injustices to call them to happen. But they happen, they're around us. And as a woman, I'm always on the watch for other women working directly or indirectly with me. And it has been more than one occasion where I've actually picked up the phone because I felt that another female could appreciate a call from another female just to check how they're doing.
That's really great. I guess we definitely have to support each other from that perspective. To close the episode, I would love for you to share what resource you're using that helps you in your career or personal development.
Definitely be kinder to myself when something doesn't go as to plan. It's very easy to focus the energy on what has gone wrong. So definitely a tool I use is remind myself that so many times I've done well. I mentioned that earlier, which is practice, practice, practice. That can be my written skills. That can be, the way I speak, the way I interact. And in general, it's about sometimes taking the time to think, I've decided to do this. Is this the way to go? And not being afraid to change direction halfway through. If, as I'm seeing that the result of what I'm doing, is not really headed towards the right direction, it's okay. It's okay. And that's something that I do try to make sure it's understood within my team as well. I'd rather have people that, that can speak up and say, I don't think this is answering the questions. I think we should take a different angle. There's another perspective we can look at. And I do that myself, but only also as well in my personal space.
I like that. I do spend a lot of time reflecting as well. So I'm glad to hear that there is someone else doing that out there. And I'm not the only one talking to myself in my head.
Oh no, I do talk a lot to myself. In Spanish still.
In Spanish, really.
Of course.
I love hearing these stories. So when I moved to England, so my first language is French, and I had this thing where I had to learn English as fast as possible. And I just stopped writing in French and thinking in French. So I forced myself to do everything in English. And now I even dream in English. And when I go to France, I'm like, okay, I need to swap language now, which is very confusing.
Yeah, no, I very much still think in Spanish, but
Interesting.
yeah, and I want that to be the case. Very
Yeah.
proud to be Spanish.
Yeah, it's really, I'm guessing switching contexts and switching languages so fast is definitely a skill that is not negligible at all. Well, thank you so much, Roshni, for joining me on the podcast today. It was a pleasure having you.
It was fantastic, and you guys are doing a great job. When I see the community you have created within Women in Data is wonderful. It's about supporting each other and achieving more and greater things together. So thank you for having me in this podcast with you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for listening to the Women in Data podcast. We will be back in a couple of weeks with a new guest. Until then, if you have 2 minutes, it would be great if you could leave us a rating or a review, as it helps not only to make the podcast more visible, but also to enhance the content. If you don't want to miss the next episode, follow us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. We are also on LinkedIn. And if you wish to, you can even register to the community for free. All you have to do is head to womenindata.co.uk. Have a great day.